Hey there, boys and girls, it's Fog. Welcome back to Redstone 101. To start out with today, I thought I'd talk a little bit about power and block states. So you may remember last time I talked about how there's actually 3 states that a block can be in with regard to redstone in Minecraft. You can have a block that is actively emitting power, that's behaving as a redstone source block. You can have a block that's transmitting power, that's actually or being powered by some sort of redstone source, or you can have a block that's unpowered. And now I wanted to demonstrate how the difference shows up in a glowstone lamp. So this block right here, we know, is a redstone power source. This cube that this torch is in is actually a source of power. Now it's interesting to note that this block here is receiving power from the lamp, and this block here is receiving power from the lamp. This block is adjacent to this block, but it's not lit, and the reason is this block here isn't actually a redstone power source. It's actually just receiving power. This block here, however, above the redstone torch, interestingly enough, is acting like a redstone power source. Notice that the block above it is lit, and that's because it's receiving power from this block here. So what that tells us is a redstone torch powers actively the block it's in and the block above it. And that's important. Now, notice the block below it is not powered. That's because the block that the torch is attached to doesn't receive power from the torch. And that's important because if it could, then we wouldn't be able to build things like redstone repeaters or power ladders or all those mechanisms where we turn on and off torches based on whether or not the block they're on is receiving power. Okay, so here, this is a variation on that same theme. This torch is powering the block it's in, and the block above it is also being powered by this torch, so it's an active power source. These other blocks are just receiving power. Now, with a lever, it actually works a little differently. The lever powers the block it's in and the block beneath it, or the block that it's attached to. So this block is powered, and this block is powered. Now if I put the lever on a wall, then it powers the block that the lever's in, and it again powers the block the lever is attached to. So this block is acting like a power source. Now a button, same thing. The block it's in and the block it's attached to act like a power source. And finally, if we do a pressure plate, let's toss something on that pressure plate to activate it. There we go. You can tell that you see that the block that the pressure plate is in acts as a power source, and the block that it's attached to acts like a power source. Okay, and finally what I wanted to show you here is what a repeater does. If we power a repeater, the block that the repeater points to behaves like a power source. The fact that switches power the blocks they're attached to lets us do things like route power through walls like this. In this case, that pressure plate is attached to this block, so stepping on the pressure plate also powers this block, which means this redstone down here can take its power from the pressure plate. Likewise, these torches are attached to these blocks that the switches are attached to, so they can draw their power from the blocks right through the wall. So before we move on, I want to take a minute to do just a couple of quick experiments. First of all, I wanted to demonstrate the fact that not all blocks are capable of conducting redstone. So what I have here is an array of repeaters that pass a redstone signal through different blocks. And you can see that most of the blocks in the game conduct redstone just fine, but there are a few notable exceptions. For instance, half slabs do not. Glowstone does not. Leaves don't. Cobwebs. Ice blocks, interestingly enough. Glass panes. Iron bars. Fence posts. Stairs. Chests don't, although crafting tables do. Glass does not. Books do. Furnaces do. Dispensers, note blocks, jukeboxes do. Interestingly enough, enchantment tables do not. Glowstone lamps do, even though glowstone does not. And steps do not. Okay. And there's one other little thing that I wanted to show you. You might ask, well, okay, how long is a redstone tick? And the answer is, a redstone tick is 1/10 of a second. And the time it takes for a torch to change state is exactly the same time as a 1-tick repeater takes. So here we have a chain of 20 torches, and here we have a chain of 20 redstone repeaters, each of which is connected to a note block. So when I throw this switch, if the time it takes for a torch to change state is exactly the same as the time it takes for a repeater to change state, then these note blocks will sound at exactly the same time. Ready? Go. There you go. 2 seconds. Okay, because of the fact that the block that a repeater points to behaves like a power source, we can do things like this. This is a 3-way power splitter. So what's happening here is this block is powering the repeater, which is powering this block. Because this block receives power, any redstone placed on top of it will transmit the power. Any redstone placed below it will receive power from that block. And any redstone on the other side of it that points to it will receive power from that block. So here, this one block, because it's a power source, is powering this redstone lamp, and this redstone lamp. So this can be a very useful mechanism for taking a signal and splitting it and sending it 3 different ways. That behavior that I just described lets us do a whole bunch of really cool things. In this case, we've used it to build what's called a monostable circuit. Specifically, in this case, this is a pulse limiter. A monostable circuit is defined as a circuit that has only one stable state, but that's able to pass into a second state in response to some sort of input. In this case, we're using this circuit to limit the length of the pulse that's emitted out the other side. Now these rows of repeaters here are kind of a handy way to tell how long a pulse is. They give us a way to measure the pulse. If I throw this switch, you can see that as long as it's on, actually I'm going to remove that redstone so that we don't use this circuit over here yet. If I throw this switch, you'll see that as long as I have the switch thrown, those guys stay lit. And because it takes 1 tick for the pulse to move from one repeater to another, it gives us a handy way to see how long the pulse is. In that case, that was a 2-tick pulse. That was 1, 2, 3, 4 ticks long. Okay, now the way this circuit works is when this block is powered, it's going to send power into here, which is going to power this block, which will cause this torch to go out. When this torch goes out, this redstone will cease to be powered. When this redstone is no longer powered, this torch will turn on. Meanwhile, that same signal that put out this torch is going to pass through this repeater here. And 3 ticks later, it's going to power this block. Once this block is powered again, this torch is going to turn off. And that stops this signal. Then, once we turn this switch off again, this block becomes unpowered. This torch turns back on. That keeps this redstone active, even though a few ticks later, this is going to drop back down and unpower that block. So, take a look at what this does here. No matter how long I hold this switch on, the pulse that comes out the other end is exactly 1 tick long. You can see that if I pause the game, only one of these repeaters in this chain is lit. So this is a very handy circuit. I use this circuit an awful lot. And this is a similar monostable circuit. This is also a pulse emitter, or pulse limiter. The difference is this is a trailing edge pulse emitter. So if I throw the switch, the pulse doesn't happen until I release the switch again. The way this works is when this block turns on, this torch is going to turn off, which would let this redstone drop, except that this repeater has a shorter delay than this one. So this repeater's signal gets there first, keeping this redstone lit. Then when you turn the switch off, this turns off. That allows this repeater to turn off before this repeater's, which is being turned on by this torch, before this repeater has a chance to turn the redstone back on again, a fraction of a second later. So, right there you can see this repeater, which fires before this one because of the delay, keeps this redstone high. Then when you turn it off, this repeater drops, allowing the lamp to turn back, allowing the torch to turn on a fraction of a second before this one turns back on, turning the torch off again. So there you go. That's a trailing edge pulse emitter. Well, I think that's about all we have time for this time. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you next time.